Welcome to Mind, America's Lignite Energy Podcast, brought to you by the Lignite Energy Council of North Dakota. Here's your hosts, Kate Muggerud and Jeff Simon.
Okay, welcome to everyone joining us here on Season 3, Episode 2 of Mind, Lignite Energy in America. We have my co-host, Jeff Simon, joining me, as well as Rich Nolan. Now, some of you may know Rich Nolan. He is the CEO of the National Mining Association. Rich, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. CEO, President, National Mining Association. Talk to me a little bit about a day in the life of Mr. Nolan.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be very interesting to your viewers.
Yeah, I understand that. So talk to me about the National Mining Association, because I know a lot of our listeners and our viewers might not be, I know they know the name, but really what is the goal out there of NMA?
We're the National Trade Association for the mining industry, and their voice in Washington, D.C. on all of the above topics, everything from coal to hard rock minerals to things like uranium and certain aggregates like salt. As your listeners know, if you can't grow it, you have to mine it. And we're very proud of our record at achieving accomplishments on behalf of our members. There's about 30 of us here in the office in Washington. We are based properly so right at the base of the Capitol in our offices, and that creates for wonderful opportunities to engage the leadership in the Congress on behalf of our members, as well as reach into the administration at the proper points and times to make sure that our voices are heard in the debates and policy decisions that are constantly under discussion at the national level. We also have great relationships, such as with the Lignite Energy Council and in other states across the country with our state affiliates, where we partner to both bring the messages back home and at the grassroots and grass tops level to echo what we're doing here in Washington. We also have a communications team here that's very skilled at getting our issues out there, whether it's through digital means or paid or earned media. And then we have a regulatory team, as well as a litigation budget and group of attorneys that can help us when we have legal issues pressing on the issues of the day. So
you got a full team there working for you.
Yes, I like to liken it to playing three-dimensional chess. There's every issue, there's a touch point, and sometimes a lot more than one, where we can make a difference on behalf of the membership. So it's exciting, it's fun. Every day is different, to answer your first question, and that's what keeps us young and alive and getting up in the morning.
I've been in your office a few times, Rich, and one of the neatest things that you mentioned, all the different materials that are mined in the country. The NMA office is sort of like a museum. You've got display cases with all these raw materials that are mined out there. It's really kind of cool if you ever get a chance to visit.
Yes, well, welcome your listeners, and we do have a lot of our members' products on display, and I would also mention that we also represent the manufacturers of the equipment and that help supply the minerals that this country uses that are so essential to everyday life. So you'll see a lot of large shovels and trucks, obviously in miniature size, in our office.
As we talked just a little bit before we began the podcast here, Rich, the climate, and not to use a pun there or a double entendre, but the environment has changed a lot in DC over the past several months, let's say. We have a new administration coming in. Can you kind of discuss, I guess, your approach now? It's not necessarily a fossil fuel friendly administration. What are your top concerns right now, or what are your goals for communicating the the value of the people you represent and what they contribute to the economy.
Well, there certainly is a change in philosophy in the team that's coming in surrounding the new president. They have an agenda. A lot of it comes from the Obama years, and I think they're moving so fast right now. I think it looks like they've put forward and signed approximately 30 executive orders as of today, which is a record of any incoming administration. And a lot of these policies, because they're moving so fast, are going to rely on the work that these individuals have done in the past. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a repeat of what we saw in the Obama years as far as policy changes. But one thing is a little bit different. They are almost singularly focused on climate change and building back better, but therein lies an opportunity as well. Biden campaigned on, let me see, quote, to make an important issue, CCUS, has said on the record that CCUS needs to be widely available and cost-effective and rapidly scalable solution to reduce carbon emissions. So that's something that we can work with him on. As some of your previous guests from the Senate have pointed out, that CCUS is indeed a bipartisan, broadly supported suite of technologies that has been embraced by centrists in both parties, as well as the Department of Energy. So to answer your question, for example, Senator Granholm is coming up for confirmation this week, Wednesday, to head the Department of Energy. And we are going to be making sure that our allies talk to her about investments in things like loan guarantees for CCUS, and making sure that the fossil energy program maintains and continues to move forward with that important research that goes to places like North Dakota, as well as the new program for Coal First that talks about evolving coal to products, whether it's the graphenes or extraction of the rare earths. So there is a space for us to be collaborative in the coal space, and that's where we intend to focus on things we agree on. Where we don't agree, and we will say so, and work to push back and educate on things such as the rumored moratorium on federal leasing that will potentially impact oil, gas, and coal, which certainly has an impact on many of our members. So it's a variable approach, build bridges where we can, and make our case and our points where there's disagreement.
It is encouraging to hear that there are people, when you get to the anti-fossil fuel crowd, there are some that just don't like coal because coal is coal. But coal provides baseload generation in this country, and if we can capture that CO2, and we've got projects going here in North Dakota right now, those become green electrons, right?
Well, clean coal and next generation technology, is the path, is the future. The International Energy Agency believes and has written generously about the importance of CCUS in meeting any global emissions target. So with that endorsement, it's essential to pursue, if you're going to pursue those goals, that CCUS is successful, and North Dakota is a large part of that.
So, just from the standpoint of looking at coal-based generation plants and how those numbers continue to go down, unfortunately, do you see this as something that's going to continue, or, what can we do or partners do to kind of stop this?
Well, there has been continued pressure and announcements from the utilities on retiring many of these plants. What we believe is too early. There is risk of reliability concerns with the speed at the rate at which some of these plants are going down. The previous administration attempted to reset a lot of the damage that the Obama administration had done with things like the Clean Power Plan or mercury air toxic standards, which really was probably the biggest hit on the coal fleet. But coal employment was, I believe, at 134,000 jobs in 2008. And by the time the Obama administration left office in 2016, it was down to 81,000. So that's a 40% decline over that period. And President Trump gets roundly criticized for not, quote unquote, saving the industry. But if you look at those jobs numbers, even before the pandemic, they had stabilized at a little more than 81,000 where it is. And I think what he was able to do is sort of stop the rapid fall and the decline. What you do see now are newer plants that are still out there, ones that may have larger capacity and will burn higher efficiency rates and burn additional amounts of coal. So while there has been consolidation, I think you'll see that the burn pick up. The third quarter of this year was somewhat positive, with natural gas prices projected to rise over $3, which helps bring in a bit more coal. Yeah. And you've also seen, winters in general tend to be better for our industry.
You mentioned the Clean Power Plan, which was the Obama era environmental rule regulating power plants. The Trump administration had the ACE rule, which was just recently tossed. So are we back at square one in terms of a regulation? Where's that headed right now? It seems like the Biden administration kind of wants to fast track some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think, the Biden administration's going to need to, again, rewrite that rule. So I think we'll see that coming forward, potentially with additional flexibility for utilities to manage those targets, what's called outside the fence line, with offsets and things like that. But there still is additional potential appeals out there on the ACE rule, and our attorneys are looking at that right now to see if that's a viable case, potentially at the Supreme Court. But the saga on whether the Clean Air Act authorizes the regulation of CO2 continues.
That's very interesting. So why do you feel that the coal-based baseload electricity, why do you feel that's important to kind of the reliability of our regional grids that we have?
Well, you've seen examples like what you saw in California.
Oh, yeah.
Rushed to put forward just about everything they can as far as intermittent power sources, whether it be wind or solar, that aren't always available and now have real reliability problems. And they've expanded their transportation infrastructure so fast, at great cost. Their electricity prices have risen approximately sixfold over the average of what you see in the rest of the country. So it's clear they're doing it wrong. And that is a cautionary tale of what we have been conveying along with our partners from across the country to anyone who will listen, policymakers, the administration, the Department of Energy, that there ought not to be a rush here, that baseload power, whether it's from nuclear or coal, needs to be maintained, and efforts to dismantle that, whether it's cross state lines or intermittent power sources from wind, solar, and batteries that are heavily subsidized. People need to think twice about that and what that's going to do to the strong system that we have in place in regions like the Midwest.
Rich, a lot of times I've said people in this country, we all need or a lot of us, a lot of the folks out there need a class in Energy 101. The idea of the Green New Deal is that we can somehow replace our entire electric system with renewable generation, intermittent power, really, and forego all these baseload plants. I guess I, for one, think in my lifetime, that's impossible. But how do you inject a little realism into that conversation, I guess?
Well, I think, in the examples like California, even Texas, I think the rubber is starting to hit the road here. A lot of power plants have put forward these targets to get to zero by 2035, following the administration in Europe. But when you pull back those plans and those proposals, they really, in many cases, can't do it, and they know it. And I think that's a disservice to the American people, to the consumers. They're misleading everyone in the name of greenwash. And none of you can tell me where you're going to be in 2035, or what the price of electricity is going to be, or where you're going to get it from. It's just not realistic. And they're getting away with it. And I think time will tell that those forecasts are wildly inaccurate.
In this part of the world, we look at the MISO grid or Southwest Power Pool, and even on its best days, wind, the intermittents are generating maybe 30% of the entire capacity, but yet federal policy is steering us in that direction. The subsidies continue for those intermittent sources, while our folks at the Lignite Energy Council here have been trying to get something out of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to at least recognize that the coal plants are keeping the lights on, the resiliency, that reliability. They're the backup there, but there's no compensation, there's no financial structure. How can you make the case to the regulators there that you've somehow got to maintain the viability of these coal facilities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think when we saw Trump get some of his appointees on the FERC, that we were pretty optimistic we would get some real relief there. You did see the minimum price offer rule in the PJM, which obviously is not your market, and we're waiting to see if that will help bring in some more coal power in that region. But the subsidies that exist across the power markets and the carve-outs for renewables, whether it's a state renewable portfolio standard, or, for example, the subsidies that just passed the Congress in September, giving $18 billion to the wind industry, is something that I believe, and I know the North Dakota delegation was very upset about, and took to the floor along with other colleagues from across some of these regions to once again lodge their objections to inside deal that was cut for the wind sector that really left coal out in the cold.
Yeah, we are familiar with that. Jeff and I have talked about that previously on one of our podcasts, and that's just incredibly disappointing. But do you feel, just kind of looking now on an outsider perspective, do you feel, especially what happened in California this summer with the blackouts there, do you feel that the attitude kind of changed, where people maybe paused and reflect that this wasn't the best way, or do you feel we're kind of still in that same spot?
Well, I think they snuck on by importing coal-based generation from the state of Utah. They always have. So it's I know your other guests have talked about, it's important to tell the story. So that's what we're doing here, but it's, I don't know if they get it. I guess if you look at the migration trends out of the state of California right now, maybe they do.
Yeah.
You mentioned FERC a little bit ago. Let me bring up another acronym that's called NERC. I think that's the North American Electric Reliability Council. What role is NERC playing in this to kind of call attention to this, Rich?
Yeah, they've written some historical studies about their concern about the reliability issues. They have another one underway right now, which we're anxious to see the results of. That really takes a look at the analysis of what some of the choke points are in the power markets, and if that reliability concern is real. The National Mining Association, along with North Dakota delegation and led by, in many instances, Senator Murkowski of Alaska, has long championed going back into the Obama years about reliability concerns of the grid based on the rapid transition to renewables. So they're part of that group. Remains to be seen how robust their next report will be, but we continue to work with them and engage with them to make sure the right questions are being asked, and hopefully we're getting honest answers out of the RTOs.
Some of the folks I talked to in the industry note that there's increasing penetration of renewables. And Kate, be aware of this. Kate's a resident of Texas, that Texas has so much intermittence on the grid now that there are folks saying that Texas is going to maybe see those blackouts this summer. Is that what it's going to take to get people's attention, do you think?
I think that's part of it. And shock to the consumer, our polling this last spring of 2,000 registered voters showed 71%, let me read this carefully, said that they were concerned about energy affordability and the cost that will come from overly aggressive pivot to renewable energy. So the American people get it. I don't know where that stands on their priority list, but they know what's going on. And Texas is sprinting down the wind path and has had some reliability pressures in the past. And I think that's just going to continue.
Yeah, hopefully. So kind of shifting into the Biden administration and where we're at now, are there lessons that you feel from the previous two administrations that can help coal specifically going forward?
Well, I think, again, the solution for coal is technology, and coming together in a bipartisan way. Now that we have split margins in the Senate and very tight ones in the House, that is the bipartisan ground where coal needs to operate and work from at a minimum as a way to educate voters and policymakers in the Biden administration on the importance of this domestic, reliable, affordable resource that really needs to continue to be fundamental to our electricity need in this country. If we're going to have any hope of economic recovery, of a jobs recovery that generates at the same time high-paid middle-class jobs, which this incoming president says he supports.
One thing that the Biden administration did right away was jump on the Paris Climate Accord again, which in my estimation is a global international treaty. But, the message is we need to be a leader in the world. But I think part of that, Rich, needs to be recognition that some of these countries that are continuing to emit large amounts of carbon dioxide are our global competitors too. How do we, convey the message that this is an international problem and that we need to, bring everyone to the table, so to speak?
Yeah.
Well, it is, and you see what China is doing. Their coal plants are still going in. They're new and shiny, and continue to demand both domestic and imported coals from around the world. Their commitments are loose and vague and very much in the out years. And, it doesn't appear, regardless of what they in general are saying, that their actions are following through on those commitments to not only address criteria pollutants in their cities, but also CO2. So your point is well taken, and the Chinese are, if they're not going to play, these international commitments are going to be nearly impossible to reach.
Yeah. Rich, looking towards the 2021 year, what are some of the priorities that the NMA has on docket?
Well, I think there are several policies, such as the ACE rule, where we're going to be working through what that looks like as far as a replacement. But I think we have sort of three big things that we're looking at in our strategic plan going forward. The first one is, increasing liquidity and providing financial relief to some of our operators, whether that's the taxation, like you have, and excise taxes in North Dakota, some of the things that need to be addressed to provide relief to the industry. There'll be calls for increased royalties, which we'll be working to mitigate. With a new majority in the Senate, there's the chance that they could actually pass some of these somewhat harmful proposals. So we'll be working to mitigate that. And then we've already talked a little bit today about preventing premature plant closures, and whether that's standing up the ACE rule, or looking at the market distorting subsidies that we've talked about. And then there's issues of power plant securitization. There are several states across the country that are trying to legislate buyouts, basically, for coal plants at the hands of the taxpayers, and issue bonds and leave the taxpayer holding the bag for the cost of premature retirement of those plants. And that's just something that is very sad, and we'll be working on that. And then securing future coal use, whether it's opportunities for coal technology that we've discussed, or coal conversion, coal to products, rare earths. And of course, we do have some members that export a tremendous amount of coal for steel making, the metallurgical coals that are high energy, to markets in Asia and in Europe for steel making. So that's important. And I guess the last one, not last, but one that we may hear about more this week, is a tax on the coal leasing program on federal land, which will also be visited potentially upon the oil and gas industry. And there's been a lot in the press about that this week. So that's a short list, but it's a lot.
Yeah,
we have a lot to do.
It's a busy year ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. When you first were talking at the beginning about your members, I just want to share with our listeners, what's your member base look like?
We are about 55% hard rock members, non-coal, and then about 45 coal members as far on the production side.
Pretty evenly represented.
But there's no question that there's been some recent consolidation in the coal industry. But we help whoever needs it, whenever they need it. And we have a great team here that's very flexible and nimble, and pretty impactful. So
if we have, some of our listeners that want to learn more about NMA, or even some of the different topics we talked about today, where can they go to learn more?
We are at nma.org. So look us up. We've got wonderful programs. The Count on Coal, we write about these issues just about every week, and would encourage any companies to join us. Unfortunately, we're not a membership that has individual members, but we're very active in our digital channels as well, on Twitter and Facebook. And we haven't been canceled yet, so that's exciting.
Well, after this, probably now it heard you. So
we haven't quite done the YouTube yet, and this is my first podcast, so hopefully I didn't screw up.
We're happy to help you branch out a little bit.
Kate got an exclusive.
Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, Jeff, anything else you want to touch on?
No, just like the motel chain says, keep the lights on, Rich.
That's right. That's right. You guys are doing great.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And it was just wonderful to visit and learn more. And man, you're in the thick of it. So just know what we're thinking of you, and appreciate the work you do.
Appreciate your support and having me on today. Thank you so much, Kate.
Fantastic.
Thanks for the time, Rich.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Mind, America's Lignite Energy Podcast. For more information on lignite energy in North Dakota, visit lignite.com.